there's always this hypothetical reality where it's like, oh, if men didn't exist, oh, the world would be so much nicer, things would be all great and colorful, and butterflies would be flying, and the rainbow would be there, and life would be so much more peaceful. But the truth of it is,
the royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who might find it hard to breathe if you've got that asthma. He is also a man who does include running his mouth to his cardio routine. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. And I am here to speak about women. And this one's a little bit interesting because it's almost like I'll be ranting for the entire episode, because I just feel like for a lot of what I'm covering, it's just a case of women either using men or just making men look like they are worse or in a lesser position than they probably should be. And there's a pretty high likelihood that it might sound like I have something against women or I'm speaking up against women, but the truth of it is I honestly don't. I just need to speak up for the guys in this case, just mainly because I feel like guys in some way, shape or form on the internet have been taking the wrong end of the stick for a very, very long time. Not that we should be taking any ends of the stick, because the next question would be where we'd be taking them, but I don't want to think too deeply into that. So I'm just going to leave it at that and just say that I am going to be speaking about women. And I've got quite a bit to discuss regarding women. That is a question that I see quite a number of women posting up online, which usually comes with a clip of some sort. And there is also a post where a guy speaks on his experience listening to some women, and another woman decides to come out and say something that just shows the level of selective naivete that some people might choose to have, if not convenient ignorance. And hopefully after you've listened to that, you might end up on my side. But in case you don't, but maybe you like the episode, maybe you don't like it or what it is that I said, maybe you have a different form of feedback, or you would like to suggest a potential topic and or guest that I should have on the podcast, then the DMs are always open. The social media links are usually in the description, wherever it is you find them on whichever platform you're using. And should you not feel like going to the description to check them out, then you can always listen all the way till the end, because I always mention them there. But all in all, I do thank you for listening so far, and I hope you listen all the way till the end of the episode. Now, I want to kick things off by talking about the internet for a little bit, because in some way, shape or form, I feel like maybe there's some forces, maybe it's just some people that seem to enjoy it, but for some reason, it seems like this whole men versus women debate doesn't seem to want to die down. And the truth of it is, like, most people who have been in the space where they get to see a lot of this men versus women debates, like, they've probably gotten to a point where they get tired of it. But there are still some people that like to regurgitate some of this information. And I don't know if it's for clicks or if it's just them wanting to project their emotions, feelings, and thoughts to other people. But, they usually end up doing it. And oftentimes, especially if you see this with women, it'll usually come in the form of some type of question. And it'll be some sort of question that makes the man out to not look like a good example, or to just not look good at all. And, it kind of shows how not so great men are, or how much better the world would be if men weren't in it. And a particularly good example of this is the man versus bear thing that was going on about 2 years ago, whereby some woman or a couple of women hopped online and decided to bring up this debate of, if you are stuck in a forest, would you rather be stuck in the forest with a man or with a bear? And most women were choosing the bear. And while maybe some people might not have taken it seriously, a lot of guys have taken it to heart. So oftentimes, whenever you find that women are making some sort of complaint or saying that, men should have done this, men could do that, if you look in the comments, a lot of times you'll usually find that some guy will have written there, they should have gotten the bear to do it. And I know that it's the internet and you shouldn't take most of this shit seriously, but that shit actually did really, really hurt quite a lot of guys. The fact that us guys will, in some instances, sacrifice life and limb, or you'll find that guys will just go out of their way to try and make a woman's life happy, just for women online to come back and be like, we'd have taken the bear, at least the bear won't rape us, or or at least we know that the bear will just eat us and not want to do other things with us, blah, blah, blah. And because of that, it has further fueled this whole men versus women debate that keeps on going on. Now, another one that I did find, which does tend to show up every so often, is the one where some hypothetical guy asks if men didn't exist, who would protect women? And then the woman comes up and says, protect them from what? And it's one of those ones where, like, you find that if you check the comment section of videos like these ones, you'll find that there's usually women that'll be over there kind of cheering on, and they're like, yeah, she's so right. If men weren't around, then we'd have a lot less issues. Oh, I'd feel so much safer. I do blah, blah, and blah. And the thing is, like, don't get me wrong, maybe you might feel that way, but I would probably think something different. Now, normally I don't engage in it all that much, but since I did stumble across it while I was on IG not too long ago, I figured, you know what, let me try and put a little bit of realism to this, just the same way a while back I did put some realism to the whole man versus bear question, and just sort of tackle it head on. So I'm gonna let the clip play, then get to my thoughts on it, so that I can try and demystify whether all of this that's being said is bullshit for the internet, or if there might be some truth to it. So without further ado,
if men didn't exist, who would protect women?
From who?
What?
Why would women need protecting if men didn't exist?
What is that supposed to mean?
You asked the question, you tell me.
Yeah, that was a
Who
rude
else is?
answer.
Oh, really? Well, who
Yeah.
else is attacking women besides men?
Honey, what do you mean? There's a roach in the house.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Who's gonna protect you?
Do I
You're
need
literally
protecting
dating
from
a man.
your roach?
You're dating a man.
Really? Because I have to tell you where your clothes are and where you put everything.
So that doesn't make me a man. You're a woman. You should do those things. The
Well,
question was,
I'm also protecting myself.
who would protect women if men didn't exist?
I don't understand what we would need protection from if men didn't exist.
I don't know, snakes, alligators, spiders.
Okay. But, like, are we out there on the Amazon taunting these animals so they attack us, or are we just here in our houses?
So you're saying the world would be better off if men didn't exist?
You just said who would need protection. I just said from nobody because it's just men.
Okay. Now, you want to know why I feel like this was probably a skit that was developed by a woman, even though there was a guy that was voicing the other side? It's just, I've never heard of a conversation where a guy, your typical straight guy, actually sounds like this whenever he is talking to women. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like I've heard every single conversation in the world, it's just, this shit sounds like it was a skit made up by women. And I feel pretty confident in that because even guys don't sound the way this guy sound. Your typical guy doesn't sound like that. Like, there's just something about it that just doesn't really sound guy-like as far as just male interactions are concerned. And it is a pretty big part of the reason why I do feel like this exact question of, oh, if men didn't exist, who would protect women, was a question that was probably developed by a woman, or a woman who probably saw some version of this question on like a comment section or something and decided to turn it into like an entire thing. And here's the thing, okay? There's always this hypothetical reality where it's like, oh, you know, if men didn't exist, oh, the world would be so much nicer, things would be all great and colorful, and butterflies would be flying, and the rainbow would be there, and life would be so much more peaceful. But the truth of it is, for the most part, I don't really think that we'd be able to properly fathom a world like that. Not because it's absolutely impossible to fathom one, it's just there's a lot that would seem a little out of whack. Now, I don't even want to start by quoting the Bible because I'm not the biggest fan of doing that, but if you think about it, technically, if women existed and it was just women alone, then how the hell did they exist, you know, before man's rib was taken? But anyways, that one's a little bit more on the lighter note, so let's kind of push that one aside. Because someone's gonna say that the Bible is a part of the patriarchy and it is an institution of the patriarchy. But anyways, that one aside, let's see. if the world existed with women alone and men didn't exist, let's even say that men stopped existing right now, and this podcast was probably being done by some version of Denver with vagina, I think the problems would still be the same. Hell, I feel like things might probably even be worse because everyone likes talking about how much worse men are, but have you ever listened to people whenever they talk about having female bosses? Like, oh my goodness. I remember watching a video, was it on TikTok or on IG sometime last week, and a babe was just bawling her eyes out and she was like, honestly, like I went up to this older woman, she was super accomplished, she was doing really well, and I had been looking up to her for all of these years, but she treated me like absolute shit. And the issue was, this lady was trying to get close to this lady for some version of mentorship or just trying to grow. And the thing is, that lady, in her superior position, decided to treat this other lady that was in a much more inferior or non-advantageous position like absolute shit. And the point of that one wasn't even to take a dump on female bosses. It's the comments that came afterwards and the fact that there's a lot of women in certain professions at certain levels that are considered to be way worse than men. People have spoken about how female bosses, and I know I've mentioned it, female bosses aren't the best. A lot of women say that they do not want to be handled by a female gynecologist. Hell, even female hairdressers usually tend to lose out whenever there's a male hairdresser around, because a lot of women will talk about how male hairdressers are very, very good whenever it comes to doing their hair, and it is a very, very low paying situation for them. So to come back and think about this entire, if men weren't there, who would you protect? Like, fam, trust me, I haven't even brought up the protection part, but I can already see it not looking so great for a lot of women, mostly because there's some privileges that women enjoy because they're women, and that leniency wouldn't exist because everyone is basically the same. Y'all have vaginas. Look at the domestic violence rates in lesbian couples. It is a lot higher. So if we decide to take men out of the equation, then at that point, you look at the whole protection angle of it, I feel like women will be less protected. Maybe they might feel safer for like a month at best, but after that, everything would go back to normal because there are still thugs that are female. There are still bad people that are women. So this whole belief that, if you take men out of the equation, women are gonna be so good and they're going to be so well off. Trust me, we both need each other. So if you can stop thinking that men are the problem all the time and actually acknowledge that there are good and bad people, regardless of gender, we would probably be a hell of a lot further as a people. But then again, maybe I'm wrong, and I know there are definitely good bosses who are female. I've experienced quite a number of them. But either way, I am going to leave it at that and move it on to our main topic of this episode. Now, not too long ago, I was on Reddit and I happened to stumble across a post where a guy was busy talking about how tough it is for guys who are in the friend zone. He basically went into detail about how when he was once with his ex, he managed to go and sit with her and a couple of her friends. And at some point, they were busy talking about some guy, or I think it was guys, and they were talking so much shit about the guy who clearly, by the things that he had been doing for one of those babes, really seemed to like her, but the babe just wasn't interested in dude. And after seeing that, he was like, I would never want to be in the friend zone because this is the kind of shit that usually happens. Now, I am going to read the post and get into my thoughts on it, especially the comments, because there was one comment specifically that really ticked me off, and it was posted by a woman, or at least I believe it was posted by a woman, and it clearly showed just how naive or how conveniently ignorant some women tend to be whenever it comes to situations like this. But anyways, let me not beat around the bush, let me just read the post. So it is titled Being in the Friend Zone, Nayo Hapana, and it says, and I quote, "There's something with women when they friend zone you. There's some level that you reach and the best thing is to just move on. I was with my ex and her friends some time back, and there was this guy who was chasing one of the girls in that circle. They were used to being around me, so they would do any random talks when I was there. So this guy calls the girl and they were just about to go out and go shopping, and as soon as that call ended, the guy was being shredded into pieces. I don't know, she can't imagine the guy hitting it, he doesn't seem masculine enough, and from that time on, If I can't hit it, I know I'm wasting time. End quote. Okay, particularly interesting post, not that long, it's pretty short, but it does show something that if you're a guy and you've sat among like a couple of babes whenever they're talking about guys, you would probably feel pretty much the same exact way that this guy feels as far as just the whole idea of women and putting guys in the friend zone is concerned. And I will admit, I have been with women whenever they're having discussions like these, and I have also been in the friend zone. So fortunately or unfortunately, I do have experience with both of these situations well enough that I can probably speak about them with a certain level of confidence. But before I can get into my full thoughts and my level of confidence on this entire thing, let me read out some of the comments, then I can get into my thoughts on not just the post, but on one comment that caught me and drove me particularly mad to some degree. So the first one says, and I quote, "Chronicles of the ladies group chat. Hapo ndio state of affairs za Morio hujadiliwa. Haha. Approval from her friends is the sign things are good." End quote. And to this I totally agree. This is pretty true. This is actually probably one of the most surefire ways that you can actually bag a babe, or at least that a babe actually ends up with you. And I know this for a fact because I remember when I was in uni, there was a homie of mine that tried hitting on some babe, and the guy goes, shoots his shot for a bit, and then ends up being turned down in like the worst way ever. But then now what he decided to do, because he did really want this babe, he ends up going ahead and befriending a bunch of her friends and treating them so that they were like, oh my goodness, this guy is actually really, really dope. He's super nice. So now this babe ends up coming back and she's like, oh, so this guy actually seems like he's pretty good. And, they ended up having a thing for a bit. So as far as appeasing her friends is concerned, this is actually a good thing. But, that said, on to the next comment, which says, and I quote, "Hizi ni shida za kujitakia. You can tell if a woman is into you via body language and receptivity. If you have to chase and convince a woman why she should be with you, you are destined for being the topic among the girls. Take the hint seriously." End quote. This is actually very true. I think out of all of the things that I could probably say on this episode, this is probably one of the things that I'll be repeating the most, just because it is the most true thing ever. Because when have you ever seen a situation where a good opportunity is chasing someone, or a good opportunity is destined for someone, and they run away from it? Like, they already know they've got it. All they need to do is just go and put in maybe a little bit of effort and they've got it. When do you ever see someone running away from it and they really, really want that opportunity? Usually they run towards it. So it kind of applies the same exact way with babes. Any babe that's like, oh, a guy has to chase me, blah, blah, blah. Most of the time that's usually bullshit they're saying, because the guy that they really want, they make that shit easy for them. It's usually very, very straightforward. But then you find that there's guys that believe in the chase and they think that a babe making them chase is supposed to be a good thing. Then they end up being taken around in circles and they end up being discussed in a very shitty way in some of these group chats, and then you end up in situations like the one that was mentioned. But anyways, let me leave that one, move on to the next comment, which says, and I quote, "The friend zone is the punishment for dudes who either won't make a move or won't accept no for an answer." End quote. Can I call it a punishment? In some instance, I think someone can justify calling it a punishment, but I don't think punishment would be the most accurate, but it is pretty close. But yeah, it does seem particularly accurate to some degree, and I'll explain why further down in the episode, and I will explain why a little later in the episode. But now, that said, let me move on to the next comment, which says, and I quote, "Y'all are so weird for being incapable of being friends with women. Like true friends. It's loser behavior." End quote. And to this I will say, no one said anything about being platonic friends with a babe. Like, this is something completely different. This is the friend zone. And there is actually a difference between being a platonic friend and being in the friend zone. And the worst part about it is, there's a lot of women that like making it seem as though it's the same thing, and yet they're both different. Hell, even they know that they're both different. But anyways, that aside, let me move on to my final comment, and this one was the one that really ticked me off, because this is going to make up the bulk of this discussion. And the person said, and I quote, I find it disheartening that majority of dudes pursue women because they want something from them and not because they want to get to know them. I understand wanting someone, but it's almost like women aren't anything but conquests to many men. Personally, I find that if I say no to someone pursuing me and they throw a tantrum, I completely withdraw from them because what do you mean I'm only valuable as someone to smash or date? P.S. This is why the male loneliness epidemic continues. End quote. And okay, she just had to bring in the male loneliness epidemic, which honestly, that one's a low blow. And especially to use it as a justification for the fact that men will seek out a babe, not necessarily for friendship, but mostly with romantic or sexual interests in mind and as the main priority. And look, here's the thing. I know as I continue on with this discussion, there's definitely going to be the whole thought process of, oh, can men and women truly be friends and shit? So I will start by even answering that one and say that yes, men and women can be friends. The only thing is, there has to be zero sexual interest or romantic interest from the babe, and there has to be zero direct sexual or romantic interest from the guy. And I know I said direct because there's a lot of people that will bring up the whole, oh, you know, if a babe calls the guy bestie and offers to go to his place so that he can smash, he'll always say yes. And that's where the whole idea of direct comes in. Most guys, if they're offered pussy for the most part, not unless if they're very committed or, you know, trying to take a break from it, most guys will usually say yes. So having that look like, oh, you know, men and women can't be friends is very, very misleading. Truth of it is, if most guys are very open to the sexual encounter, it's just a guy thing. But it doesn't mean that you guys can't be friends. It's just that guy has to make sure that that isn't at like the front of his mind or at the top of his priority list. If that is like way, way down at the bottom, then yeah, y'all can definitely be friends. But anyways, now that I've put that explanation out of the way, now I can go back to this woman's comment, because this comment is one that really, really ticked me off. And I'm gonna start from the bottom or start from last and discuss this whole thing with the male loneliness epidemic. First of all, she's completely wrong. The male loneliness epidemic has very, very little association to female friendships, if not any at all. And the reason I say this is because if you were to just go and do a very simple Google search on the male loneliness epidemic, you will realize that there's about 3 main causes. And usually the first one is emotional suppression, and that usually comes from culture and society, usually forcing boys to basically suppress their own emotions and not act out. And also the loss of friendships and just generally just communities where young boys and men in general can be nurtured to grow and, you know, kind of be themselves and enjoy a certain sense of camaraderie, if I can put it that way. So essentially, like, those are the 2 main ones. Then the last one is outsourced emotional labor, which now is more to do with actual relationships, not male-female friendships. So if anything, this babe is just chatting a bunch of shit. So for the most part, like, this is very, very wrong and quite misleading. Then also, if you believe that a man should approach you just for the sake of being friends, then I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like you've probably never approached anyone before. Or at least you've never had to approach someone of the opposite sex that you seem interested in. Because if you look at the kind of effort and confidence that it takes for a guy to do that, and I'm not saying that, oh, you know, the guy that is suave and hits on every single babe is going to use a lot of effort, but just most guys in general, because hitting on a babe actually does require quite a bit of confidence build up for you to do that. You realize that you're not going to go there if all you're trying to do is make her your friend. If you're trying to make her your friend, you'd use way less effort and you would try to approach her a lot less, as opposed to if you are trying to either be with her either romantically or sexually. So for a babe like this, she's looking at it as, oh, you know, you can approach me, but if it doesn't work out, we can still be friends. And personally, I think that's bullshit. For the kind of effort that we put in, it's bullshit. For the idea that this guy is going to approach you simply because he just wants to be your friend is, I'm not going to say bullshit, but it's very close to it, because there's not that many guys that are like, you know what, I want to have an extra female friend. Not unless if I'm befriending you so that you can introduce me to the homies. or at least introduce me to your homies who are possibly even hotter. So for the most part, this is absolutely misguided bullshit that's there. And my issue with this entire thing, okay, and by entire thing I mean the idea of the friend zone and the fact that guys are put in the friend zone, isn't the change in status from romantic partner or sexual interest or romantic interest into friend. That one I really don't give too much of a flying damn about. It's the fact that women put these guys in the friend zone and actively gain from it. They are actively gaining from guys in the friend zone, and they're out here busy saying, oh, you know, why can't men and women just be friends? Y'all are actively gaining from it. And if you're a guy and you want proof of this, notice any babe that you may be in the friend zone of and look at how they behave once you get a girlfriend or once you get a romantic interest that you're spending a lot of time and basically just a lot of your energy on. They will usually in some way, shape or form start to step in or probably not speak so nicely of such a person, or even though they speak nicely, they'll be doing some weird shit like calling at night. I've seen this shit happen a lot of times where a babe is like, no, I only see this guy as a friend. And they basically dismiss the guy. Then at some point, this guy goes bags another babe. And suddenly she's calling at like 10, 11 p.m. at night. Oh, I'm having this and this problem. Oh, I don't know if you can help me. And you know full well that there's like an 80% chance that this dude is in bed with his shorty. Like, this is some shit that you will usually see happening in a lot of instances. Like, this guy was previously interested, really put in the effort, and this babe was like, no, I don't think there's anything serious with you. And then suddenly they get a babe, and now it's like, oh, now I suddenly want more of his attention. Oh, I think we could have worked out. Oh, I think me and you probably could. She's not right for you, I am. Okay, maybe the last two are a bit of a stretch, but it's not like they never happened before, because I do know people who have actually gone through shit like this. And so you find that there's a lot of women, and actually I believe most women who put guys in the friend zone, basically friend zone these niggas just so that they can get the benefits without putting in the effort. And the truth of it is, and I know this is going to sound bad, these women actually are worse than the guys that are trying to be with them. Because at least the guy that's trying to be with you was very straightforward, or at least was making his intentions very, very clear. You have decided to conceal your intention to benefit from the guy actively by calling him a friend, but at the very same time, you know full well that this guy wants you. You know full well this guy's intentions, but you are willing to milk shit out, knowing full well of this guy's intentions, but very willing to stand behind this whole description of you're just a friend or we're just really good friends. And I've tried to ask myself why it is that this could be the case. And I'm sure there's a lot of women that will come and be like, oh, I don't gain from any of these guys in any way. They're just the ones that reach out and talk to me. And the thing is, it's not like the gain is always going to be a tangible thing or always going to be something that you can see outright. A lot of times that gain is probably in something as intangible and abstract as attention. You can't exactly put a counter to it. It's not like you can go and you can basically just measure out how much attention someone's giving you. But because you like the attention, you might as well stick with it. And what I've noticed with a lot of babes is there are a lot of women who would much rather complain about a guy in their DMs than have 0 guys in their DMs. So they would much rather milk that attention so that they can remind themselves that there's another guy that wants them, whether it's to keep the guy in check or some shit or to make themselves feel good, as opposed to them basically just shutting all of these guys down so that they can leave their DMs dry. And so that is why my biggest issue with this is the fact that a lot of women allow it to happen, knowing full well this guy's intentions, or knowing full well a lot of these guys' intentions, but very willing to enjoy the benefits without any of the responsibility or the work, which I feel sometimes can be a little bit devious. But then again, considering that some guys actively get themselves into these situations, is kind of a willing buyer, willing seller type of problem. And to kind of conclude all of this, what I am trying to say is, fellas, they know. If you haven't made it clear, then you can probably go ahead and do so, but for the most part, they usually know. these women know your intentions and they are going to keep you in the bloody friend zone. So if you feel like you're already there, you better make your intentions known. And if you feel like you're about to get thrown there, you better make sure your intentions are known very crystal clear. If this babe isn't going to take things further, then by all means, you know exactly where they stand. So back the hell off, go and find another babe that will appreciate you and stop putting yourself in such situations, because all that's going to happen is you're going to be taken advantage of and you're not going to get anything out of it besides a slight dopamine release because your crush said thank you. You're absolutely the best. Although, then again, maybe I'm being too harsh on this. Maybe I'm looking at this from a very, very blunt point of view, and maybe there's intricacies to it that I haven't considered. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On IG, it is at the breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the breaktime podcast. And on X, it is at Bagaka the D. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.